day, ladies and gentlemen. Eric Coffin, HRA Advisories. It is Wednesday, April 28th, 2021. I'm here with Mike Carr. He's the CEO of Bitterroot Resources. Bitterroot's a company I've followed in the newsletter, and I own no small amount of it myself. Bitterroot is exploring for nickel copper conduit hosted deposits in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. This is an area where others have made discoveries. There's an operating mine nearby, so it's not, it's a logical place to look. More importantly, Mike just finished up the second phase, small phase of drilling at the LM property, and that phase did in fact prove that one, he's got a conduit, and two, it's got disseminated and semi-massive sulfides in it. So next phase, it starts soon. He'll be hunting for the massive stuff. I think it's, the reason why I like this is I just like it as an exploration story. But when you're trading and investing in drill speculations, which I do a lot and have done for a long time, one thing that's vitally important that really, really improves your odds is torque. And what I mean by that is, are you investing in a company that is looking for a deposit type where if they have success, there will be a large movement in the stock? And I think that would be the case here. These high grade conduit hosted deposits are extremely valuable on a per ton basis. They're rare. You might see 2 or 3 of these maybe get discovered in a decade. They just don't come up very often. And because of that rarity and the value, if a company finds one, the market tends to ascribe a lot of value to it very fast. I'll have Mike go into the details of that a little bit more, but I'm going to pass it over to him. But it's Bitterroot Resources, BTT on the venture, BITTF, OTC in the US. Great story, still tight, and they're just about to start drilling again. So can you kind of walk us through, here's the model, and then we'll kind of go through what you've done and then what you're going to do next, because I know you're going to start drilling again as soon as the road beds are off.
Great, thanks, Eric. Yeah, well, what we're looking at here on this first slide is our first drill hole from last summer, our very first drill hole on the project. And we hit mineralization, which was not something that happens very often. So we're quite thrilled with that. And it's disseminated mineralization. So you can see here these blebs of pyrrhotite, pentlandite, and chalcopyrite here. This type of mineralization occurs around bodies of massive sulfide at Eagle and Eagle East, which are only about 30 kilometers away. So I'll explain the significance of that in a minute. But anyway, this is what we call disseminated mineralization. And it means that we're near some massive mineralization. Forward-looking statements are the usual, so buyer beware. We're located in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, only a few 30 kilometers from Eagle Mine, 600 kilometers to Sudbury. There's railroads, there's highways, power, all the infrastructure you could want. And there is another discovery nearby by Talon Metals here in Minnesota, just southwest of Duluth, Minnesota. And I would urge people to go to their website, and if they wanted to learn anything about battery metals and the type of deposit that we are looking for. They're several years ahead of us in terms of exploration, and already have a resource, but it's a great roadmap for what we're trying to accomplish. The target is conduit hosted magmatic sulfides, primarily nickel and copper with some PGMs, although in this area they don't seem to be a huge contributor to the value, but the nickel and copper grades are quite impressive. We're only 100 kilometers from the mine that's the mill that's processing the Eagle Mine's ore. So they truck ore 100 kilometers to the mill. We would do the same. Here's a geology map. This is a syncline or a basin, if you will, of Proterozoic sediments sitting on top of Archean gneiss, still part of what's known as the Canadian Shield. Eagle and Eagle East are here in the axis of the syncline. We're off to the side in a fold on the edge of the syncline. And sulfur source which is a very important component of these deposits. You have magma flowing through rocks, picking up sulfur from not only the Archean gneiss, but the sulfur-bearing sediments that are in the Baraga Basin. So we have a sulfur source and we have magma conduits identified. So that's what you need to form one of these deposits. This slide shows Eagle here on the left and Eagle East. Eagle is 5 million tons at just about 3% nickel, 2.5 copper. That was pronounced magnetic anomaly with a iron sulfide bearing outcrop here. That was the discovery hole here was about 85 meters of massive sulfide, and it's been a very profitable mine. Subsequent to that, Lundin discovered Eagle East in this conduit. There's an outcrop up here of peridotite, the right kind of rocks to host these things. And they basically did their drilling and just kept following this thing deeper and deeper until they found a horizontal area where these sulfide droplets can settle out, much like a placer gold deposit forming in a stream. The flow, I should put an arrow in here showing the flow direction, but the magma came up over here. There's another subvolcanic intrusion off the bottom right corner of this slide. So the pulses of magma came up from there, went horizontal here, and then continued back up to what is now the ground surface. It wasn't back then, but it's very important that we have a horizontal place, a place for the sulfides to settle out. And this, in terms of how Eagle is related to this, Tony Naldrit, who's was one of the experts in global experts in nickel deposits, felt that he thought that the magma was coming up Eagle East, and then Eagle kind of formed in a pothole. In other words, the part connecting them is eroded off, but there's a bit of a dip here, and that's why Eagle East is sitting here kind of all by itself. It's not fed from below. It seems to have been fed from laterally. So these are not huge ore bodies. You can see that one's only about 400, Eagle's only about 400 meters long and about 300 meters top to bottom. Eagle East is about 450, 500 meters long. So we think our current erosional level at the LM property is much lower. We're hitting mineralization at about 270 meters down hole. Eagle East here is 900 meters down hole. So our drilling costs are quite reasonable, more like testing lower levels of Eagle, really. The Eagle East is 1.5 million tons of better grade nickel, 3.7 nickel and 3 copper. That's definitely an ore body. If we were to find even something as small as that, I think that would be something extremely valuable. The mineralized intervals in our best hole so far, hole number 7, there's disseminated mineralization running 0.5 to 0.7 nickel and copper. We had a massive sulfide clast, which was running very high grade, 7% nickel, 8% copper, separated by a little more disseminated material, and then a basal unit of semi-massive sulfide, which was quite iron rich and nickel rich, so 5% nickel and only 1% copper. But that's ore grade, and that's ore grade. These are very high grades, and as I said, it makes us confident that we're near something that's bigger and higher grade than what we've seen so far. So there's just the composite intervals. Total grade here over the 3.5 meter interval, 1.7 nickel, call it, and 0.9 copper. And we were just looking at what a similar ore body in Australia was grading, and the Nova Bollinger deposit of Sirius Resources, which was purchased for $1.8 billion, is about 10 million tons at very similar grades here, 1.85 nickel and 0.8 copper. So if you have enough of this stuff, you've got an ore body, and something that was, as I said, purchased for $1.8 billion 5 years ago. So I think we have the torque that Eric's talking about here. There's some semi-massive mineralization here on the left. That's the 5% nickel and 1 copper. Here's the footwall sedimentary rocks, unmineralized, and then here's some disseminated mineralization above. Here's a close-up in the disseminated interval on both sides, and then this is this rip-up class that ran very high grade, 7% nickel, 8% copper. So this came from somewhere not too far away, and we plan on drilling for that very shortly. The tenor of the mineralization is important. In other words, when you look at just the nickel and copper grades in the disseminated, you can predict what the massive sulfide should run. And even before we got to this year's drill program, we had calculated, based on Tony Nalderit's formulas, that 7% nickel and 8% copper were likely to be the grade of massive sulfide. And that was basically borne out by this class here. So again, if we can find any accumulation of that, it's going to be worth an awful lot. Here's hole 10. This was the last mineralized interval that we drilled. We just released those numbers on Monday. 2.3 meters at 0.9 nickel, 0.8 copper in disseminated or blebby sulfides here. Slightly different rock unit there. This is feldspathic peridotite, which is common around Eagle. And a little bit of semi-massive here at the base. There's a very strong elevation control to these, and I'll show you that in a minute. Here's the blebby sulfides again, and the semi-massive in hole 10. We've done some 3D modeling, and this is a view from above of our drilling so far. So we set up at the peak of the magnetic anomaly that defines this intrusion, and have been drilling holes down. So these red dots represent the mineralized intervals that we hit. These other holes have exited the intrusion at higher elevation than the base. The sulfides are forming at the, or collecting at the base of the intrusion. So here's a cross section, and you can see holes 7 in the background, I'm sorry, 1 in the background, 10 here, and 7. All that mineralization is occurring. These are 10-meter intervals, these lines. So within about a 15-meter elevation range is where all the best mineralization we've hit has occurred. All the rock up above is not mineralized, even though it's relatively similar composition. Looking at it from above, from a slice about 70, if you took a slice about at 70 meters above the mineralization, be about here. So that's what we're looking at. So there's hole 1 with the disseminated, hole 10 that I just showed you with the disseminated and a little bit of semi-massive, not much. And hole 7 was the best hole with the rip-up class and the semi-massive sulfides and disseminated.
Well, one thing about this program too, Mike, that I think that's important people grasp is going into this. You had hole 1, you knew you had a conduit, but you really didn't know what it did to depth. Like you didn't know whether it was flattening or bending and which way it was going. And I think part of what you did with this last program you just finished was you pretty much closed it off in 3 directions. And there's some other evidence you'll go into later, but basically you know which direction to chase this thing in, which you didn't really know at the start of the program.
That's right. The magnetic response can be a bit ambiguous at times, so we had to do a bunch of drilling to kind of feel our way around and figure out what is the shape of this. And I'll show you a neat 3D animation of what we think is the current orientation of this thing. So just to summarize here, here's our disseminated in hole 1, semi-massive and disseminated in hole 10, and semi-massive and disseminated but higher grade, more sulfur in hole 7. So on a simplistic view, we think we're seeing increasing sulfide content and grade. This really is the image that is, for the time being, is most important. We're drilling here at LM. We've acquired all the ground you see that's got magnetic data on it is now our property. We started out with a 40-acre property. Now we've got a 400-acre property. And the ground magnetic survey has given us a weak magnetic feature that we think is a continuation of the conduit. We've got a magnetic high here and here, what calling them creatively enough 1 and 2, and a third linear feature here. So all of these features are the scale at which you can fit an Eagle East or an Eagle into these areas. The actual intrusion here at LM is pretty much the pink in the center of this larger red blob.
Right.
The magnetic anomaly itself is bigger than the actual body of rock that's creating it. So Eagle will have, say Eagle East would have a bigger magnetic anomaly than the actual footprint of the ore body that I'm showing here. So our geophysicist has modeled the magnetic response, and you can definitely, if you put this type of ore body at 300 meters depth, you can create this type of response at surface. So our goal going into the next phase of drilling will be to gently step out from the south edge of where we've been drilling from our best hole here, hole number 7, and continue along this trend. We also want to test this magnetic high here and this magnetic high over here, as well as that feature. And that's probably a 20-hole program. We are in the process of doing a financing right now to raise $1 million. But the 20-hole program is going to be about $1 million program, of which we're only paying 51%. So it's not expensive exploration here for the most part. And
one thing that I think is important for people that invest in resource stocks and maybe don't know Bitterroot and maybe don't know the Upper Peninsula, Michigan, for that matter, you're in a pretty favorable situation when it comes to permitting and what you need to do to be able to drill because of how the tenure works in this part of the world, right?
Yes, this is private land. So we're privately owned minerals and privately owned surface. So we don't really need any government permits. The permitting hurdle is quite low. In this location, we have one permit that's issued by the county because we're disturbing the earth within 500 feet of a creek.
Right.
That permit took us 48 hours and cost $150. It's not an onerous permitting environment. So as long as you have a good relationship with your local landowners, it's a great place to work here. The land ownership can be quite fragmented, but you need to take a rifle approach rather than a shotgun approach. You don't need to have a large contiguous property. You can if you strategically have land where you need it, you can operate quite effectively.
Okay, and your planned start date, you're waiting for road beds to come off. So I guess it's like late May, something like that.
Yeah, every spring, usually in late March, or always in late March, the weather warms up a little bit and the roads in the bush start to thaw out. And so that's generally when all the loggers and anybody in the bush just pulls out and lets the roads thaw, and they tend to be dried out and usable again around mid-May. So that's why we stopped drilling. We pushed it right to the end of March, but we're out of there now. Should be able to get back in late May. I guess the only other thing I would point out here is just these both Eagle and Eagle East are roughly 400 meters end to end, and we got a 600 meter long magnetic feature here. and there's roughly 600 meters between these two magnetic highs. So you can easily fit this scale of deposit or size of deposit into this size of geophysical or magnetic feature.
Right.
Moving forward, we have received the assays from LM 2110. That was on Monday in the Monday news release. We're in the process of doing this $1 million financing, which we hope to have closed next week. And we'll get back drilling in late May. The drill rig was left on the property. And we are continuing with our land acquisition activities around our current property position.
I think that covers it. I mean, I'm happy to see you doing the raise and do a 20-hole program. I mean, there's no doubt this is sort of prospecting with a drill, and that you have to chase these things. So it's nice to have that number of holes, and obviously it's nice that you're in a place where drilling 20 holes doesn't cost an arm and a leg. It's very efficient cost-wise. I think that just makes it a better speculation. There's not much more room for you to make a discovery. There'll be that many more drill holes. It'll be that, it'll be a, I don't know what, 2-3 month program, something like that, I guess, to drill that many holes.
Yeah, 20 holes. If you give it, say, 10 days per hole, yeah, 200 days. So that could be as much as 6 months. We need to get out of there again for hunting season in September, which lasts until mid-November or early 1st of December. So yeah, we plan to hit it hard as soon as we get back in there.
Okay. Well, I mean, there you have it, folks. Straightforward drill speculation. They know they have the model. They know they've got the right rock. They've already hit disseminated and semi-massive. They know which direction they want to chase it in. I just think they don't get more obvious and straight up than this. And most importantly, as I noted at the start, huge amount of torque. Mike made a couple of references to Talon Metals. They do have, they've got something that's much further along their PA stage. They've already got a resource. But to give you some example, that's got about what, $500 million market cap, give or take. And
yeah, Talon has 60% of their project, and they've got a $450 million market cap. A company in Australia, Chalice Minerals, has a similar type discovery that's been a big hit in Australia. That's got a $2.4 billion market cap. It's still in the exploration stage. And there was a deposit called Nova Bollinger that was acquired by, that was discovered by Sirius Resources and bought several years ago for $1.8 billion. So our market cap, sub $10 million market cap, has a lot of room to go with a little bit of exploration success. And we look forward to trying to deliver that.
That's it in a nutshell, folks. Drill spec, very high torque, ready to go. They'll be drilling in 3 or 4 weeks. If you like drill specs, this is one you want to be on for sure, because it's just a great story and a great spec. Thanks for walking us through it and kind of giving us a post drill phase summation, Mike. I'm definitely going to be watching it like a hawk, and I am buying the placement, as you already know. So that's it for today. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure we'll be catching up with Mike once he starts drilling.